Now that we've looked at how to do a form, let's look at how we can format the form. Now, normally we would use CSS to format. However, you can build a form and quickly format it if you put that form in a table, which used to be the only way we had to format, putting things side by side. Again, we've mentioned this before, was by using what we call a structure table. A structure table normally is the first tag after the body, or maybe the first 3 tags, but it structures the website. Here we're just having it structure the form. However, the form really is the website. So let's look at the tags that we would need to use. Now when we look at this, we're going to have our standard HTML, head, and body tags. That's in everything we do that we want the browser to recognize and display. And remember, in between the title, what you want on the blue title bar, you put in between there. And then, of course, all of our comments. Okay, now outside of the normal tags, like our formatting tags with H2 and our P tags, we've already covered these. So what we're going to concentrate on would be the form and the table. Now, when we start this, again, to tell it we're going to have a form. And remember, on the form, the name and the ID are the same. And as I mentioned several times before, we have to really watch out about using an ID because it's used for so many different things. Here again, we're using it so that we can not only maybe apply a CSS, but also a name to be able to reference this form within the DOM, the document object model within the website. Now remember, on a form you have the name and ID, which are normally the same. You have your action, which whenever the user tells the form to go, they're done. Then it does whatever is in between the quotes. It might be executing another file. It might be bringing up another website. Here, it's sending all the information that was typed in to an email to this email address. And then again, of the form, our method is post. Remember, we have a post and we have a get. That's simply how is the information sent to our action. Is it sent through the URL or through a header format area? Okay, now we still have all of our form tags. We've already talked about the form tags. Within this, we still have our labels. We still have our selects. We still have our inputs. What we're looking at is just a matter of how do we format these. So if you look at this, again, we want to have the label and then what you select for the select. Label, label, and then whether we have radio buttons that are mutually exclusive. So let's look at these top area here, the top 3 inputs that we're looking at, or elements within this form. Okay, so we have our label, that since it's on the left-hand side, we have to have a row, and within each row, we have a cell. If we look back here, this would be one row all the way across. Here would be another row, and then a third row. Now within each cell within that row, so each TD, this is only one cell in that row. Again, we have another cell within the row. We have that all the way down. So when we look at this whole thing, we can pretty well figure out that we have 2 columns all the way down, except for this one text area. Within this column, all the TDs, they have to be inside a row. So you can lay these out again and format them between your rows and your columns. Remember, the rows always come first, and then for each column, you have an open and closed TD. So let's go back and look. So the labels on the left, the select, or actually being able to select it, is on the right. So I have 2 TDs. In fact, almost all of our TRs, our rows, will have 2 TDs. Not all of them, but most of them. So we have our drop-down list, or list, however we want to look at it, because the size determines that, remember. We have the name and ID and all of our options. And those together, we can actually choose from. Now I'm ready for my next row. Again, it has 2 TDs. The label in the first column, and then our radio buttons in the second. Remember, this is the one that has the type as the radio. The name has to be exactly the same, but our values are different that get sent over. So it's inside the TDs. You end that row, and now you're ready for the next one. It looks exactly the same as far as the structure. TDs for each column. And again, we have our radio buttons. Now, when I'm done with that row, I'm ready for the next. There's my row, and then the first column, TD. Open, close. And within that, we have our check boxes, or all the check boxes with the appropriate label. Now remember, a field set gives us a way to be able to put a box around certain data. So around my check boxes, I'm going to have a field set, which is going to put a border around it, and the legend above it, top left, is going to say types of sites visited. Now remember, that's how we get our box and the legend within the box. We'll have an ending TD tag and then another TD tag for this field set, this label, and then all of these radio buttons that go down through here. And then it ends the field set for the box to end. Then we'll have another TR tag for our text area. But notice it goes across 2 columns. So how do we accomplish this? Well, let's go down and look. Here we have our TR. Now remember, when we talk about the spanning, the most TDs we're going to have in any row are 2. That's the maximum. So even though this goes across the row and we should have 2 TDs, well, I'm still going to have 2 TDs. It's just I'm going to span across. So that lets me go through here and tell it that I want to call span 2, and this will go all the way across both columns, but it still only takes up 1 row. And we can continue on for every row. We just tell it what TD to put in. And again, the maximum is 2. If I don't have 2 TDs, then I probably have a call span. Now on this text, we added one attribute that we may not have talked about before. Its size is 50, meaning 50 characters that I can work with across. That's just the size of it. That determines how long this is. It doesn't mean that I can't work with anything else. It's just the size to go across to begin with. Okay, it's not a max character or min. Those are other attributes you could use. Now, it's pretty repetitious from here. Every TR, 2 TDs, with your form built inside. Now, of course, we can add attributes of these tags for formatting, or we can still add styles. Notice on the buttons within each TD in that one row, I want to align them right. Now, that's only in this TD, not both. In the next TD, I'm aligning it left. So when I look like it, it looks like these two buttons are side by side instead of really far apart. Now make sure when you get done with these that you close any field sets, but you need to close the table and the form. Close in the order that you open, working from the inside out. So the form will be on the outside, table on the inside. Then comes the body in HTML. Now if you'll notice here, while I've shown you all my code, that it is indented. It's much easier to tell how your DOM is structured because I can look at this and I can tell, for instance, within this TD that the field set is the child of the TD. Legend is the child of field set. Now, why is that? That's because legend comes as a tag inside the field set. I haven't closed the field set. Now, legend is closed, so the P tag is not a child of legend. The P tag is a sibling of legend. So we have our DOM structure we can work here. And we can also use these as our selectors in applying styles. Remember, if I wanted to apply a style to only this P tag, I could tell it, go to the field set, space the legend, space the P. Now that's going to say they have to be in that order. If I put a comma, it would mean all of them. But I might want to only apply to that P and not the other P's. Remember, there has to be something unique about it if I'm going to apply styles to only one section, not using an attribute of a tag. I hope this helped you. We're also going to look at doing a form with CSS. It might take you a little bit longer, but it's much more versatile. Continue on.